Madara vs. the 5 Kage, overwhelming might versus unbreakable teamwork, in one of the biggest stomp sessions in anime history. What's going on, guys? TG or ThunderGod here, tackling a pretty interesting topic here. Today we'll be swapping around the Kage that fought Madara with Kage from different eras, one from each village just like in the original fight, to give the group a much better chance against the ghost of the Uchiha. Now, rules for the video are the Kage in question will have their feats used when they are alive. No Hashirama. I feel like, that's kind of defeats the video a little bit, you know what I'm saying? With that being said, though, make sure to like and subscribe if you're new here, and let's get into the most objective take on Madara versus my 5 Kage. Now, for my Mizukage slot, I'll be taking Mei out and subbing in the 4th Mizukage, Yagura. Yagura was a former Jinchuriki of the Three Tails, noted to be among the few to have complete control over his tail beast. This is evidenced via the data books and Danzo, who places Yagura among Killer Bee, Hashirama, and Madara to be one of the few to achieve true control over their Biju. We actually get a bit of insight into Yagura in the anime version of Itachi Shinden novel Light and Darkness. Yagura was shown to instantly react and decipher a pre-planned formation attack between Itachi and his partner Juzo. As the Jinchuriki is able to access up to his version 2 state with complete control over himself, being able to dominate Juzo as well as tagging Itachi and incorporating jutsu into his Biju transformation, such as his Coral Palm Jutsu, holding Itachi in place. The technique was also shown in the War Arc to completely immobilize KCM1 Naruto even after he was freed from B's palm. Yagura is also shown pressuring an albeit fresh Itachi to use his Mangekyo Sharingan. Yagura, along with this good showing, at least by the anime standards, also does show some unique jutsu such as the water release water mirror technique, materializing the target reflected on the mirror created with water. The enemy receives a counter attack with the same strength of their own attack, performed against KCM Naruto's Rasengan and Killer Bee, with the reflections moving at the same speed and producing equal power to the originals. An immediate use for this technique I could see is that it could be used to mirror Madara's Yasaka Magatana beads and send them back, possibly even parts of the Susanoo itself, although we don't know the limits of the jutsu. The fact that it could copy a Kyuubi Jinchuriki cloaked in Nine Tails chakra in strength says volumes about the technique's capabilities. Yagura's version 2 cloak in the war is also shown taking direct hits from Six Gate Guy and Raikage Kakashi along with other Edo Jinchuriki. So Yagura is able to amp himself and his durability when transforming into the higher levels of Biju. The original Mizukage Mei was only real useful in countering Madara's fire style and weakening his Susanoo unquantifiably. As to Yagura, who's a complete Jinchuriki with a wider range of diverse jutsu, a greater chakra supply to pull from, Yagura would be far more useful than Mei, who was also the first one to go down against Madara's wood clones and had to be saved by Gaara. I also choose Yagura over the second Mizukage, as the second's giant clam would be broken pretty easily by Madara after he quickly would see through its genjutsu, considering Onoki could break it with his weighted boulder technique, in which case it kind of becomes clear that Madara Susanoo would be able to break the weighted clam as well. There's also a question of the second Mizukage Steam Imps, a personal favorite jutsu of mine, which, made out of oil, are water clones that when heated up explode, and these would not only not be able to breach Madara's defenses, as Gaara's sand was capable of defending against them, but leave the Mizukage out of strength as well, which is the reason he was so easily sealed when the imp was not near him or out of play. Now, for my Tsuchikage slot, I must confess, when scripting this video, I originally came into it with the mindset that I'm probably going to swap Onoki for Lord Mu, as his particle style, even while as an Edo, is on par with Onoki's in terms of activation speed and potency, with the added bonus of Lord Mu having extremely impressive sensory capabilities, Lord Mu being the only one able to dodge grab attempts from Gaara's sand, an attack that caught all the other Edo Kage, as well as Mu being able to dodge a KCM Naruto clone who was moving toward Mu while his jutsu was still activating, and Mu was still able to dodge him, making it very slippery in a fight. Couple this with the fact he can even perform fission while being hit by Naruto's rotating Rasengan, and while not being able to perform his notable jutsu in this state, does give him the chance to surprise the opponent, as Mu can collect chakra for another jutsu, evidenced by him summoning Madara. The issue is that while you could potentially make a claim that Mu might be a little stronger than Onoki as he's in his Edo state, Onoki's arsenal makes up the difference by miles. Onoki's most valuable asset behind Jinton is easily his lightweight rock technique and the added weight rock technique. Not only did he use this on Gaara's sand, but throughout the Madara fight was periodically making the Raikage lighter and heavier depending on the situation, making him far more useful in the fight. There are many instances where you can see how potent this technique is. Onoki lifting the entire Turtle Island Naruto is training on, or even him slowing down Madara's Tengai Shinsei Meteor, being a substantial speed drop evidenced by the difference in speed lines as demonstrated on the panels on screen. You may as well say, well, couldn't we just assume Mu can use these techniques? The databook only lists Onoki as a user for these techniques at the time when Lord Mu was in the story, so we can infer that he cannot use the weighted boulder techniques. Now, I don't want to oversell it, but there's actually a point in the Madara fight with Madara's Wood Susanoo clones where Inoki's actually able to make them immobile for short periods of time by increasing their weight. Like, just look at him. He's giving a speech while just chilling in front of them. We got the 5 Kage who are struggling with their wood clones, and Inoki is just able to put his fight on pause, go help the Raikage, come back, give a speech, and they're still immobile. It's actually a very good showing. I'm surprised more people don't bring it up. It's also noted by Madara that Inoki is the problem among the group on numerous occasions in their fight, whether that be his indomitable will that was holding the 5 Kage together, or his wisdom in combat. Even in fatigued state, when he obtained chakra from a fatigued Tsunade, he could wipe all the clones and their Susanoo off the battlefield, possibly implying that had he been at full power from the beginning of the fight, he may have been able to replicate this feat. There's no real way to say that Mu would have been a better choice. Yes, you could make the case he would have been a little bit stronger, and he does have superior sensory, but Onoki's abilities, wider arsenal, and experience would make up for the difference. He's just shown being a valuable asset in the Madara fight. I don't believe Mu would do better than Onoki in this Madara fight. For my Kazekage slot, I'm actually going to keep Gaara the same as well. Now, I may get some flack for this, as a lot of people are going to spring to the 3rd Kazekage as he's the strongest. We're going to talk about this more in a second, because there is a bit of debate for that. Gaara, for starters, is able to match his father in a contest of sand, having similar attack speeds, but shows superior intellect by forcing Raza into lifting the gold dust above everybody's head, making it so Gaara could catch him and the other Kage in a sand prison. You could potentially argue the Edo Tensei forced Raza to make that specific move, but it's a logical response to Gaara's attack that Raza himself definitely could have made in that situation, especially when considering his surprise when Gaara's strategy comes full circle. We also see Raza attempt to attack Gaara with his sand, with Gaara's sand defense blocking it confidently, ending with Gaara sealing Raza along with an attempt to seal the other Kage, which failed. There's actually a case to be made that Gaara grew stronger from the revelation that his mother loved him as described by Raza. This is seen with Karura's chakra manifesting her into the sand for the first time. Add this to the data book entry on Gaara's page. The truth of Karura's love was revealed by the 4th Kazekage, and Gaara, with this feeling in his chest, went to the battlefield. Mental/spiritual energy is half of what makes up a shinobi's chakra, which can be heightened by elevated situations. Is it outlandish to say Gaara having this revelation allowed him to soar higher as a shinobi, as it allowed him to work through past trauma and become more complete as a person? It's definitely possible. Or I'm just trying to fill in for Kishimoto. Bro, where is my check for this? Oh my gosh. So Gaara does display he's superior to Raza. Even if you say the relative, he does get the better end of him in their encounter with seemingly no real difficulty. The fight lasts not even a chapter. Now, I'd actually make the case that while the 3rd Kazekage is stated to be the strongest, more so in reference to his iron sand in the manga and data books, but regardless, this only works if we have Raza to scale off of. Otherwise, it leaves the 3rd in a bit of a gray area. Whether or not you believe the 3rd is the strongest is not what's relevant. It's how they use their sand. The 3rd shows much more offensive variety with his sand, whereas Gaara, in this stage of his career, shows a lot more nuance with his defenses. We see this in the fight with Madara, with Gaara playing support in that fight, blocking attacks, stacking defenses with the other Kage, flying the Kage away from danger. But the reason I have Gaara over the 3rd Kazekage is that he also has the ability to seal the Edo Tensei users with his sand mausoleum, or with tags combined with his sand in general, which is something huge he has over the 3rd in this matchup. You can maybe make a case that the 3rd Kazekage would be able to seal people in his sand if he's given tags, but we never really see the 3rd Kazekage puppet use the sand in that way. Anime showing of the 3rd being resurrected by Orochimaru does not supplement this either. You could maybe say the 3rd couldn't manipulate that much iron sand, but was able to use it so effectively that it just made him the strongest. Or maybe it's not his fighting style. At the very least, he should be able to use grand scale sand attacks, as the Kazekage have an arsenal specifically made to combat Shikaku. Regardless though, I can't really confidently say he can use the jutsu, so I don't believe he'd be as useful against Madara, as Madara needs to be sealed at this point by the group, and they actually can't take him down otherwise unless they have Gaara sealing him. So Gaara is actually a lot more necessary, and he plays a vital support role. I'm essentially giving up more offensive presence and a potentially stronger Kazekage in the form of the 3rd Kazekage for a more support-based Kazekage who actually does have a win condition. Gaara was also shown saving other Kage like Mei from the Susanoo clones and actually able to block their sword swings with his sand, so his sand defenses are actually pretty substantial at this point in the series. Now, for my Raikage choice, I have the 4th Raikage A. Now, I actually don't have too much to say on this section since I'm not changing the Raikage as well. This is a bit weird, but hear me out, guys. I won't be changing this placement as there's only 2 Raikage we got feats and usable lore for, and those are the 3rd and the 4th. You can maybe make a case for the 2nd Raikage, who's somewhat implied to be a rival to Tobirama, being able to combat and repel Kinkaku and Ginkaku from a surprise attack on both Kage while they were wielding all 5 of their ninja tools. We don't know the details of that encounter or if there were any more shinobi present. However, aside from this lore, we also know next to nothing about him. Again, you could possibly say he's above the 3rd, especially when looking at the lore of Ginkaku and Kinkaku, who in their 9-tailed beast state boast strength equal to that of 1,000 shinobi each. There's definitely a case to be made, but there's too much unknown about him. The 2nd Raikage also is not listed as a user of the lightning armor like the 3rd and 4th, which makes it even more impossible to assert what he's capable of, at least in terms of his jutsu. So that's kind of that on that. But back to actual characters we have showings for. The reason I'm putting the 4th over the 3rd is due to the fact that the 3rd is shown to be a rival to the 8-tails, while the 4th is shown to be equal and at certain points Shippuden superior to an 8-tails Jinchuriki. It's backed up by numerous statements in the data book, an example being in the 4th data book listing the Raikage as the strongest in the village, along with discussing the 4th as the highest in the village in terms of combat power. Now that can obviously represent a certain period in time and isn't consistent throughout the duration of the story as B does improve, as well surpassing A, which is represented with his lariat being able to overtake the Raikages in base compared to previously when he needed to have his tail beast cloak on, a rite of passage ritual for his brother, as up until that point he actually wasn't able to match the Raikage's lariat fully. The Raikage fits the role of the fast bruiser, able to clobber down wood clone Susanos, and when assisted by the super light and boulder jutsu is actually able to break Madara's rib cage, albeit while it's melting. Onuki also made the 4th Raikage a much more reliable asset in the fight, as his weight was changed to fit the situation or strategy in place, which makes the 4th all the better of a pick. Onuki was making him faster darting around the battlefield, and when it came time to strike the Susano, Onoki would make him heavier. Pretty simple, but the fact that he's kind of coupled with Onoki makes him much more viable and makes the group much more viable as a whole, especially for like combo moves. Not too much more to add on the Raikage role. It's pretty short. There's only real 2 options, and the option is pretty clear to me, unless you believe like the 3rd is just, you know, has better lore, which I guess you can make a case for. Now for the Hokage slot, I did say for this video I wouldn't use Hashirama, so I will have to go with a weaker Hokage, and unless you subscribe to Prime Heroes and having lore greater than Hashirama, I will be choosing Minato as my Hokage. Now, I feel as if I don't have to sit here and justify why I chose Minato over Tsunade, but I do feel as if I somewhat have to explain myself in choosing Minato over Tobirama, as that topic's a topic in of itself. Now, off rip, Tobirama is at a disadvantage, as Madara should have knowledge, or at least a good understanding of Tobirama's abilities from lifelong fights against the Senju clan, making remarks about Tobirama's style of fighting when he attempted a sneak attack off Madara on top of the ghetto statue. That does also mean the inverse is also true, but the most he could really tell the group is that Madara has the perfect Susanoo, which, I mean, was a GG anyway, so it almost didn't even matter that he would have known that. Pretty much everything else from Madara's, fighting style, they could have gathered from Onoki as he was spilling intel about Madara, and Madara was just testing out Hashirama's abilities, which you could also maybe make a case that Tobirama would know how to counter, but even Tsunade recognized, like, grandfather's forest bloom and all these techniques, so I don't think Tobirama's intel would be that valuable here as a trade-off to what Minato provides. Now let's talk about it. And this would be Minato when he's alive, and barring what you believe about Tobirama and versus Minato, at least base to base, Minato is far more useful with his flying Raijin jutsu, being able to clutter the battlefield with mark kunai along with being able to mark each of the Kage. It is shown that Tobirama has the ability to mark his kunai, however, they're not all marked like Minato's, with like a wrapping around them. When Tobirama actually marks the kunai, they're at different points of the kunai, leading to the idea that he has to manually mark the kunai before he performs the strategy, compared to Minato, who just has like stacks of priest-marked kunai. Like, my boy got all of them. I'm not gonna make this a big thing for Tobirama versus Minato, as that topic does have a lot. I simply favor how Minato utilizes the flying Raijin more, noted to be a more evolved form of the jutsu, examples of this being his flying Raijin second step and the spiraling flash super round damage Dance House Style 3. Oh my god, that's a real technique name. This is where Minato throws 6 FTG kunai behind the enemy and he's able to teleport to them, you know, teleport around. And although we've never seen this technique in its entirety, it does exist as a more evolved form, and maybe you could make a case that Minato can only do this when he's cloaked in QB Chakra, but no, Minato actually notes that it's been a while since he's had to have done it, implying he did do it at some point while alive without the QB. Also, going on record, again, I'm not saying base Minato is faster than base Tobirama, simply noting the facts. Tobirama himself concedes to this. On top of this, Minato also has the Reaper Death Seal, another sealing technique in win condition for the group instead of simply relying on Gaara to seal Madara. I favor this much more than Tobirama's techniques such as the tandem paper bomb, which it's unlikely he'd use this in the fight as it's more so noted to be an ancillary jutsu, meaning a supporting jutsu to the Edo Tensei that Tobirama would not really have a chance to use unless he went and grabbed a corpse before the fight started, or like he had a corpse like on his summoning scroll. I don't even want to go crazy in the Minato versus Tobirama segment, as I know I probably cut out a ton of it. I'm just simply going over why Minato is a better choice for this fight and not why he's an objectively superior combatant, which is not the point of this segment at all. With physical strikes capable of piercing the 8-Tail's tail, capable of tanking its own tail beast bomb, and the 4's lightning armor, maybe you could say A is weaker, but at this point he was about to become Raikage and would at the very least need to be able to subdue the 8-Tails. Even though the Kage lose unbridled raw power and a medic in Tsunade, they instead gain a faster shinobi who, instead of healing them, can prevent them from getting hit in the first place, allowing for a lot more pressure with their strategies. Like, imagine the Tsuchikage making Minato way lighter like he did the Raikage, with this absurd reaction times is due to be moving across the battlefield. I imagine this slot will be the biggest topic or subject of debate, which is perfectly fine, and I imagine it's going to kind of flip-flop between Minato and Tobirama. That's my team to take on Edo Madara. I'm not saying this group would beat Edo Madara, simply maximizing a character select of Gokage to fit the fight and give the greatest chance of victory, that being sealing him as an Edo. Let me know what your guys' team composition is down below. Did you agree with mine? Disagree? Why? Let me know. I'm very curious. You know what I'm saying. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Bye!